everybody.
Oh,
Hi, Morgan.
hi, Toby.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
We're back for episode 3 of the Poché what?
Pour up. This time it'll be really interesting. We feel like we've been talking to y'all for a while, but how many of y'all really know the little things about us that makes Poché just a little bit different?
So special. So let's start. I'm Toby, co-founder and CEO of Poché Design Studio.
And I am Morgan, co-founder and chief creative officer here at Poché Design Studio.
Yeah, we do other things outside of this, but here and now, this is who we are.
I'm actually gonna start with a warm-up question.
Okay.
Tell me, as we are all nail girlies here, I need you to tell me about your nail shape and why.
Oh, that's a good one.
I
So my go-to nail shape is I think this is medium almond. Medium almond. I love it because I can do a lot with it. You'll see it in the OOTD. I can do a lot with it, and it gives me more. I have a good amount of like nail bed space to play with the art that I like to do on my nails. You know, we both do our own nails, DIY girlies. It's a good hobby to have because it saves you money. And then every time people compliment your nails, you get to say, "I designed it. I did it." And they're like, "What?" And so you get 2 compliments in one. The fact that your nails look good and the fact that you're so fucking talented. I mean, that's not why I do it, or that's not why I started, but hey, we all have our reasons. So yes, my go-to is medium almond. I've been tempted to go like, I'm thinking, and I don't make impulsive decisions. I'm thinking about moving to taper. But not yet. We're still medium almond girlies right now. So that's me. Colorful almond mediums. Ooh, that's a tongue twister. That's me.
Ooh,
What's
I
your
love
go-to
it.
nail shape?
Okay, well, if y'all have ever met me in real life, I like to stay dangerous. So I go for claws. These are extra long stilettos.
Oh my god.
And
Stiletto pumps in the club. Who would have thought that you ever get? Hey, okay.
Anyway, so that's who I am. I once saw this video and it was like, if you see a girl and she got nails like this, she either fights or she does makeup. And I'm like, I definitely do a lot of makeup. So
both.
I was like, these nails are for actually a lot of hard manual labor. I love them a lot because I love being this really small woman at the gym with like claws, and I'm like on flight 175, literally.
Climbing up.
And I'm like, I'm messing it up, and I'm like, yeah, no, please do not ever underestimate somebody with claws like this, because
Underestimate.
Y'all heard me.
Loud and
Y'all heard me. Excuse me.
You're good.
Yeah, you know, just never play anybody by their nail shape, and I think that is one thing that we love, is that there's so much diversity even in how we show up on our hands.
Yeah, and also our methods. We have 2 different. We're not gonna get into our methods, but we do our nails slightly differently. But yeah, we both do our nails.
And Toby encouraged me to start doing my own. That is part of having best friends.
Cause you know the thing, and this is where, for real, we're not gonna keep going on our nail talk, but I realized that every time she would get her nails done, and every time I would get my nails done, we'd be like, it's nice, like it's cute, but like what I really wanted was this, and we would keep always having that experience, and I was like, this is what I had in mind, but this was my compromise, and we really just got tired of compromising on our nails.
And I think Toby was like, one day I just bought a kit, and I was like, let me just see.
Kit.
And I was like, you know what? You do it. My sister Tiffany, she does it exceptionally,
so
and I'm like,
good. And she does it on herself.
And I'm like, the girlies are doing their own nails, and shout out to each and every one of y'all.
Period. Okay, that's a good one.
Okay, yes. All right, go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. First question: where were you born?
Was I born?
It's a good question.
It's actually okay. I will answer as best I can. I was born in Townsend, Maryland. Most people then assume I'm from Maryland, but that would not be the case.
That's interesting.
So yeah,
I love that.
Townsend, Maryland.
How long did you live in Townsend?
In my head, it was for only 8 months, but I definitely left when I was a baby. We immediately moved because my younger brother, who is a year and a half younger than me, was born in Indianapolis or Indiana someplace. So I was like, we definitely like upper left.
Interesting. That's a good one.
Where were you born?
I was born in Lagos, Nigeria. I don't know if y'all saw that video of Cleopatra, where she's like, I'm the real Nigerian. Green, white, green, that's in me. Yeah, that's in me. But a lot of people then they meet me and they're like, but you don't sound Nigerian. And I'm like, oh, here we go. My whole life story.
Just
but yes,
right here.
I was born in Nigeria. I was born in Lagos. So she's a city girl. And I lived in Lagos for 9 years and then I moved to South Africa. And then.
How long were you in South Africa?
Just over 12 years. Just over 12 years. Yeah, it was a chunk of my lifetime. But I'm not fun fact, I'm not a South African citizen, but I am a permanent resident. Yeah.
You know, as an American, hello, Zelda.
Hello, Zelda. Welcome to the podcast.
We're glad you could join us as our special guest. She'll be in and out.
She'll be in and out. She's doing her own thing, while we're doing our own thing. Hi, baby girl.
Don't mind her.
But yeah.
We'll get into all of those legal things later because Lord knows I've never understood it. I gotta be honest.
Yeah, no, it's interesting when I tell people like most of my life I've been on a visa. Like most of my life I was on a visa of some sort. Obviously outside of not the first 9 years of my life, but yeah.
See, and I'm like, these are the things.
To be an immigrant. Yeah, it's all good. But she's here.
And it's the family. So is the family.
Who's the family?
Your family.
Yeah. I mean, that we're immigrants?
No, just, that entire process happened for your entire family.
Oh, yeah. We get...
Anyways, so the question of where we're born and where we're from is quite diverse, I think.
Very different. And then how did we find each other?
How did we find each other? So, me and my family, basically what happened was we stumbled from the East Coast to the Midwest, to the kind of west south.
That's one way to put it.
We can just skip over that one. And then Morgan wandered a little further here to LA because Morgan, raised a good chunk of her life within various levels of suburbs. I'm a city girl at heart, and I always knew that. The lights, the action, all of that was calling for me. So I winded up at USC in 2016 after graduating with my undergrad degree from Arizona State University, because I knew that no matter what happened in this life, your girl was going to be an architect. So I knew I had to go to grad school, and I was like, let me choose one that matches my lifestyle. I chose grad school very intentionally because I knew I was going to make friends there and likely end up staying there. So that is how I ended up here at USC, fully expecting to be the only person of dark skin in this program at all, because that's what it's like at Arizona State. And like, no shade, but that's what it was. There's me and one other black kid in that building, me like on a consistent basis, like
at the same time.
Right, at the same time. You never saw more than two, like you knew someone was up. So when I got to USC, I knew, I had looked through the little email list, I saw Josh's face and I was like, okay, I expect at least one. And then when I got to campus, and then, I'll cut here. We get to campus, and then I'll cut here. Tobi, you tell your half.
That's a good one. That's a good place to end it. And then we'll come back, So I graduated from my undergrad in Durban. Shout out KZN, University of KwaZulu-Natal. Fun fact, my campus was called Howard College, and it was not historically black, but it was predominantly black. So it's always this fun, quirky story because the fact I went to a school in South Africa that was historically white, but predominantly black at the time that I went there, and it was called Howard College. So I literally had a warp, HBCU experience, alternate universe. It was a vibe. Everybody that was there, shout out from 2013 to 2015. Who was in there? You know who you are. We was having a time, shorty. We had a time. I think literally a different world, but our age is a lot. Like,
so
it was
fun.
litty. And it was the only time, I always say this, it was the only time in my life where Black women would be in the majority. My graduating class from architecture was majority Black women. I mean, at that time, I did not realize that would be my only experience of that. And so I graduated in 2015. The South African school year system is slightly different. We go from January to December, and then my graduation was like April the next year. So between basically November, my dad was like, "You're going to grad school." And I was like, "I'm going to grad school." So, you know, being a first child of immigrants, like, yeah, the trauma that comes with that. But so he was like, "Yeah, you're going to grad school." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Well, if this is something my parents want me to do, I'm going to make the most of it. I'm going to go where I want to go, and I want to like have my own experience of it." So he and I put together a list. I knew I wanted to live in LA for multiple reasons. I just knew, like, from where I was living in South Africa, like the closest temperature wise would be Los Angeles. And so I made that, and there were some certain laws that were in place. I was like that as well. And then also, as a person, a fan of like rap music, like a lot of the core of rap music originates in LA, or at least, you know, West Side. A lot of my favorite rappers were also LA based. So I was like, imagine like being in the mix of it all, and then technically being paid to be there because my parents were covering my educational tuition fees and lifestyle at the time. I pay for my life now. Thank you, parents. But so I was like, well, you know, at least I'm going to try go to LA. So I applied to highest concentration of architecture schools that I applied to was in LA, but I also applied all over the US. But I knew that I wanted to go to LA. Fun fact, I also got into SCAD for undergrad, but we won't tell that story today. Different story, different reason I didn't go to SCAD in undergrad. Fun fact. But
you got hella places.
Yeah, I did get into places in undergrad. I would have either ended up in Florida or Savannah, but that's, again, different. That version of Toby would have been somewhere completely different. I don't even know. So anyways, applied to architecture schools in LA. I make the wait list for SciArt, and then I was like, ooh, that hurts, but it's okay. And then I get into USC with a little scholarship. I was like, I will be in attendance. Thank you very much. So that's what brought me to LA, 2016. And then first day of campus.
It's like, excuse me if I'm wrong. Y'all gonna have to bleep this out. I don't care. But I was like, that is another nigga walking towards me.
And I was like, because we were listen. Okay. So
it was so exciting.
It was. Let's set the scene. USC starts on a certain date. It starts usually later in August. But for the people who are doing the post-grad experience coming into USC, do a 2-week boot camp.
This is to catch you up on certain programs that we use, certain expectations and rules and things like that. And
it's like orient you. Like, this is like an summer orientation.
Yeah, and it also gives people like time to find housing and all that stuff. So it's like you show up a little bit early so that generally you know that if you're on campus, and if you're in a secluded part of campus, as the School of Architecture is at USC, because they have
at the time before Ivan Young came along.
Right.
We don't talk about them.
Right. We
took up our garden area. We won't talk about them.
Beautiful grasslands.
But at the time, it was in a very secluded area of campus.
Because nobody was going over there if they weren't engineer students or architecture students, point blank. And that's just what it was. And we knew that. So generally, if you saw another person of color, you knew more or less by which direction they were kind of leaning towards what school they were going to. And so when we both pull up on the first day a little bit nervous, like I had met some people at orientation the day before, I was looking for them. I think similar things might have happened for you, but like we were just looking for the same room, and it was this thing where we were like hovering around each other. I'm like,
we walked in from like 2 different directions, and then we smiled at each other, and then we just kept like walking in the same direction, and like we walked into different doors in the first lecture and like sat on different sides, and I was like, but we entered the same building, and then we went to the same room in the same building. I think you went to the people that you had met, and we're like, oh, there's another one
in here. Oh my gosh,
there's another one.
I was like, okay, mission.
Find the other black girl, the other dark-skinned black girl.
And, I mean, so I'm part of my story is that I'm a massive introvert. I actually don't like talking to people. If y'all have ever tried to talk to me, you probably know. Sorry, but I was like, I don't even know how to go and meet this girl because I don't have it in me to just like go up and introduce myself yet. Like I was not there. Like I was very skittish. So I was like, oh, I don't even know how to do this. And like thankfully we had friends of friends of friends who got us into a similar night.
My closest friend, so turns out I was doing the 3-year, she was doing the 2-year. So we weren't taking the same like boot camp classes. We're like parallel tracks. So my closest friend Michaela was roommates with your closest friend Maggie, and they were roommates. And then one night it was like the girls are linking up and going to a party, and I walked into Maggie and Michaela's place, and who do I see sitting on the couch? This chick.
I was like, thank you.
And it was like the first we were like, you.
I was like, this is happening.
We're literally like, I've been looking for you. I've been searching near and far for you. And I found you. You didn't watch Love Island, and I'm so sorry to go down this route, but literally, there's 2 dark-skinned black girls on Love Island this season, and like when they see each other, they're like, I've been waiting for you. And it's like, literally, I'm like, I get it, because I know that feeling. I get it. But yeah, so that's how we met.
And honestly, I didn't even think about this before, but I think something that's really special, I'm just going to bring this back.
Yeah.
I think something that is truly, truly, truly special about Poché is that is the space that we have done our absolute damnedest to create and maintain. Is like, I'm so happy that you're here. I'm so happy that I have you here. Like for you, for our designers and the people that we work with, like it's always just this space of I'm so glad we get to share this time together, and I'm so glad that we get to bring to life the things that we both care about. And like, you know, part of doing this with your best friend is that we were already planning on going through life together, you know, like
yeah, we were already doing it. We were already doing it.
Like I never had love at first sight type shit. But I remember looking at Tobi like, I swear to God, if she's going where I'm going, then we going together. Like
we locked up. We've been locked in since before we even knew we were locked in.
Like,
yeah, no, that's so interesting because it's like a lot of people, you know how I feel about decentering men, but a lot of people tend to look for those type of love stories with romantic relationships.
Yeah.
And it's really cool that we found that in a platonic relationship, and we knew like where you're going, and it's ironic. Like we it's like we had like an invisible string, but it literally like we lived down the street from each other.
Yeah.
Like we could just go down 30th to each other's apartment. Remember Halloween night when you were locked up?
I was like, please,
that was so
in.
funny. She was like, I'm stuck. Where are you? I was like, oh, I'm so sorry I was late. I'm not sure what I was doing, but anyways, and then also like. We even like you living in downtown, like we both pick neighborhoods that we like, but are not, again we're not that. We're down the street from each other. You keep going down the street, you gonna run into her apartment, and also like even like when we were working architecture, like traditionally, I mean you still do, but that's wonderful. But it was also like the type of firms that we were looking at, different similar places. Were like we always had this exchange, and it's like it's also interesting how we've seen like different friends live in LA and then move out of LA, and we're like, bitch, you staying?
I'm like, look, you give me a 3-year heads up, bro.
Yeah.
I am not playing with you.
We're like, it's funny, like we can be like people can move, people can come and go, but like okay, it's even the fact that Morgan is talking about moving neighborhoods is like, wow, like we're having
we're in conversation.
We're in conversation, like it's an ongoing conversation, but it's also interesting that like we know that no matter what, we have each other, and it's really cool because even our friend group that we've created and formed around us, we have such cool. We need to do like, and Rue has talked about doing this like. A dinner and doing like an intro on like each of our friends, like what our friends do. Like we have the coolest fucking friends. It's like, crazy. Our crew is crew full of baddies, but we'll talk about them another time. But it's also interesting because like our friend group, as we've built this very intentional, really dope friend group, they look at us and like, wow, y'all been doing this because this is our 8th year in LA. And it's like, now we're looking back like, damn, we're the grand. People are like, oh, I just came to LA. I moved here a year ago. Like, let me tell you.
Let me tell you what you in for. It's going to be fun.
Like, I'm now the old person who's like, yeah, they used to be a this down that block. They closed it down. They didn't make it past the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
We're the historians.
That's what happens when that vote went through.
Yeah, no, for real. Like, remember when recreation? Okay, you know what? Okay. Yeah, see how it happens? But
anyways.
It's really cool that we've been able to build this really strong sisterhood. Yeah. Like, I'm sure both of our parents feel really great that, like, as long as the other person is in LA, and I'm pretty sure I got a text from your mom, you got a text from my mom.
Girl,
like,
was gonna get one today.
so it's really cool because we have built this really solid foundation, and then in and around this foundation, like we always say, like we're literally married to the government. Like our taxes are like this. Mm-hmm. To end Poché, we're gonna have to file paperwork. That like
upon paperwork.
So all I have to say is really, really beautiful and rare to have built something special with my girlfriend. Okay.
Question. Tobi.
Yes.
Tell me.
You have a mic right there.
I know. Tell me, Tobi. What was your first design or thing that you have created?
Thank you for asking me that, Morgan. The first thing that I designed / created, one thing about me, I love Project Runway. How I know I'm getting old is I tell my students, I say, do y'all know a show called Project Runway? And most of them don't. And I'm like, what? Yeah. And so that happens. I know. Wow. You're old. And I'm like, okay. But basically I just describe it as like a fashion design competition show. Like how Top Chef is with cooking. Project Runway is with like outfits. So I was very obsessed with Project Runway when I was in high school. And I was so inspired by Project Runway. I had this dress that was really cute, but I wanted it to be a jumpsuit. So I like cut it and then I hand sewed. I'm very good at hand sewing. I haven't cracked the sewing machine for some reason. Like every time I get across a sewing machine, my like
machinery.
It never goes right. But I also have never taken any like traditional classes, but very, very good with my hands. So I made this dress and I turned it into a jumpsuit. And I actually have the photo somewhere on my phone or on my Facebook, both probably. And it was like, we had this day called Spring Day and everybody wore like spring inspired outfits. And so I wore my little jumpsuit. And it was like a strapless, dress. And I turned it from a strapless dress to a jumpsuit that had alternate. So it looked like a little like 50s style. It was very cute. Let me see if I can find the photo. But yeah, that was my first design, and in another life I would have studied fashion design. I would have been a fashion designer. So that's something that I was super. So I'm like looking on my phone for it.
No,
something I was super interested in.
Next question is like, did that impact what you wanted to study in school?
It did. I swore I was going to study fashion design, but I'm so glad that I didn't. 2 reasons. My parents were like, you cannot study fashion design at a university, and we want you to go to a university, not an institute of technology. I'm like, shade. So my parents were like, we want you to study at a university. You can do institute of, and they were like, if you can show me a university that you can study fashion design at. And most of the ones that I was interested in did not offer that, but they offered architecture. And they were like, well, if you study fashion design, you can only do fashion design. But if you study architecture, you can also do fashion design because you are carrying around the same skill sets. And it was very, very helpful because a lot of people in my family had studied architecture, so my parents were familiar. Like, they weren't just talking out there. So they were actually correct. Like, a lot of the skill sets that I learned in architecture school, I would say, like, if you were creative and wanted to be creative and do stuff with your hands, like, studying architecture is great for that, even if you don't end up in architecture or studying something like industrial design. So just having an education in something that I could apply into other things, and they were right. All the skill sets from fashion design were applicable in architecture and vice versa. But if I only study fashion design, I would only be in a very niche.
Well,
in a box.
In a box.
So what was your first design / creation?
I just hate when parents are right sometimes. They be right.
They be right. They be knowing what they're talking. And real maturity is being like, your parents were probably correct. People that are older than you, they probably know what they're talking about.
Unfortunately. Just listen. Unfortunately.
Just listen. You know what? The thing is, you'll get to that point too where you're right as well. Mm-hmm. You'll get there.
You're probably already there. But for me, right, work on it. We're still.
Can you move that? There's like a sandwich. The sandwich bag is like yeah.
My bad.
No. That's our fault. That's okay.
Okay.
So, what was the first thing you designed or created?
So this is a difficult question for me, because so if you were to go to my parents' house right now, there's a small museum of Morgan. And there's all of the things that I have created in my early childhood. And the reason I call it Museum of Morgan is because I'm always like, Mom, throw this shit away.
Like the paper is yellow, like it do not need to be here.
It's not that cute. But when I was at my parents' house last, I found a lot of the stuff that I first made that she really held on to, that I was like, actually, I'm kind of impressed by this. And so I wrote a poetry book when I was a kid. I drew a book when I was a kid. I drew portraits of me and my brothers when we were kids.
I need to see this. I need to see what's in the Museum of Morgan.
Yeah, I know. It's
like a paper, like out of what?
Well. I also enjoyed sewing by hand, but I was like, this shit is too slow. I used a hot glue gun and some felt. And I would like cut out the shapes that I wanted and stuff my little dolls.
That's so. Yeah, the fact that you need to like close the seam and
it was like, seal it in, baby.
Oh,
so
she's a designer.
I was like, a young designer, just interested in making things. Yes. So the Museum of Morgan, I would say, is my first thing that I created.
It's a collection of all the first things.
Yes, and it's just like different ways to be creative as a kid. I think that's one thing that was really fun. Like, we didn't necessarily grow up broke, we didn't necessarily grow up wealthy. Like, we were very middle class, and so having access to certain things at certain times and not having access to certain things at other times. But what I knew I could always count on. Because what I wanted to make sure, I was a wise kid. I was like, I'm not going to keep asking my parents for money to like do all of my creative things. So I need to find ways to entertain myself. So yeah, that's part of why I draw now, is because drawing was a free activity. Still is.
And now you have an iPad, so you don't even need pen or paper.
I don't need none
Just
of it.
crank it open, and even like your phone.
Exactly.
You draw on your phone.
Draw on my phone. I still write poetry on my phone. I still do all of these mediums. So deciding major was difficult.
That's true. Because you could have done so many things in ASU. Because your mom. Information. Your mom worked at ASU, so you were most likely gonna go to ASU for undergrad.
Yeah, and I went to an Arizona high school, had a whole scholarship, so it was working out,
but ASU offers a lot of like creative.
It is a massive university for a reason. It is a massively creative university. I mean, and same with USC, which is part of why it was chosen. But Arizona State has an amazing, truly interdisciplinary program, and it's a beautiful school. I mean, it's working on a lot of things, but it's a beautiful school. And so for me, this is one way or place where Toby and I link up every single time. It's like same thing. I had a little bit less pushback probably from my parents when I was in high school, is when I started taking CAD classes. So I've been using AutoCAD for most of my life, and I mean that's like numerically, I have been using AutoCAD for 16 years. I started using it when I was 14. Like,
oh my god, yeah,
it's been me and AutoCAD go back.
yeah, me too.
Right,
we were focused on hand drawings, but we did open AutoCAD and do stuff in AutoCAD.
Right,
yeah, Photoshop, damn.
And it's like how drawing has changed even in our time.
Remember when it was like CDs? Remember before it became like software became like streaming, where you could only get it online,
and you had to have the 4 computers in that lab.
Yeah.
And we had drafting tables, raggedy. I loved them.
But yes,
So anyway, so all of this to say, when I was in high school, my parents encouraged me to do engineering because they saw that I was good with my hands and that, you know, I was always putting stuff together. I told them, the boys in engineering are not cute. So what do you want me to do? I'm really confused. What do you want me to do? Like, I'm not going there.
You've been you for a very long time.
My whole life.
Some things never change.
I'm gonna be mad. That much I'm sure. So we agreed on architecture. Me and my parents agreed on architecture, which I was cool with. And so that's why I went to Arizona State, and that's why I went to USC. If I would have had it my way, though, I probably would have studied fashion because that was my true passion. It still is in the fashion world. But I think for both of us, we were able to apply a lot of the tools that we learned from architecture, but also our cumulative educational experiences. Like, I don't want to say that it's just architecture that has gotten us here. Mm-hmm. You know, I studied African American studies in undergrad, and one thing that I always say is how I would learn about something in architecture history. I'm like, that's crazy how I'm learning the same topic in my black classes, and y'all ain't mentioning none of the same shit. Like, none of it. That redlining, it's funny how you skipped right over that. So, I mean, yeah, I think that's part of
yeah. Did ASU have a fashion design program?
They started building one after I left.
That's usually what happens.
You said you got into
SCAD.
Okay.
Yeah, I applied to SCAD for architecture though. So my parents, I know SCAD did offer a fashion design program, so my parents were like, we agree on architecture.
Ma'am, over here.
And we're not paying the application fee, so you better. I think maybe I think I did architecture, interior design, and I think maybe fashion was my third choice.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, at SCAD specifically, but everywhere else was architecture and interior. And then fun fact, at UKZN where I went to school, it was architecture or business admin. But we have a business now, so
I know. I was like,
you know,
the irony. It's kind of funny.
That's so funny. Like, imagine.
Well,
I think I did. It was like architecture, maybe urban planning, and then business admin. I don't think business admin was my. Yeah, I don't think business admin was my second choice.
Well, and I think what I've heard from both of our conversations and just what I know about us as people is that we both used grad school as a strategic move to get to our next level. We both saw the move to Los Angeles as a means to a greater ends. I don't think either of us necessarily.
And just architecture as the medium to take us there. That's very true. Absolutely. We're like the location. We're in the middle of everything. Yeah. All the architecture grades have a building here that you can go see with your own two eyes and experience. It's very intentional. We're both super intentional shorties. Okay, I have one more question.
Okay.
Living in LA, and I mean also outside of LA, but specifically living in LA, we've worked with some interesting people. Like, before Poché was even a thing, like, we've had 2 different work experiences. I will say I did not realize how middle class I was until I moved to grad school. The fact that my parents are paying for my education, there's like things I was like, oh, not everybody's living like this. Oh, that's interesting to me. Like, my parents, and also it also goes into being in South Africa, being on a student visa in South Africa. I couldn't work. And similar when you're on a student visa, you can only work in the thing that you're studying. So if I were to work in grad school, I would have to be working at an architecture internship. I couldn't just like work at Sephora, for example. My visa does not allow for that. So because of that, my parents were paying for like taking care of a lot of other things. So the way I did end up working, and this is where it comes into your past experience, how your past experience influences your current missions and the life undertakings and things like beliefs.
Yes.
I worked, like, I did an internship for an IG influencer.
Yes.
And that's the details that we're gonna leave. If you know, you know. If you don't, we can chat.
But that's okay.
That's okay. And that was a very interesting experience.
Right.
And
what did you learn?
That influenced a lot of how I lead. One of my favorite, not favorite as in haha, favorite as in weird stories was like, they would have photo shoots, and the photo shoots would be like all day. So mind you, I'm so black. Mind you, I'm a grad student at this time. During my semester, like I'm taking a full load. Something I did not realize is that like full load is different depending on your program. So like architecture's full load was like 16 units. I knew people whose full load was like 12 units. And it just depends on your program. So I was thinking that semester I ended up dropping down to like 14 just because I was like, it was a lot happening. And I was doing an unpaid internship. Number one, red flag. I don't believe in unpaid internships. That's one thing that influences me now. Like, because some way, somehow, the labor that you are using is generating income. And sometimes maybe you don't have like a lot of income to pay interns. And so it's like there's different ways you can go around it. Like you can barter. You can decide like, okay, this is a rate that feels comfortable for me. Because again, if you have someone as an intern, there's some way, somehow that person is helping you generate income. Slice it. If hopefully your margins are comfortable enough, slice a little bit off the top. Even if it's just lunch. Even if it's like, I pay for your lunch every time you're here, spending time with me. There's ways to show value and that way. So one of my things would have photo shoots, all day photo shoots, like 8 hours. And they would only buy food for them and the model. And I was starving. I was hungry. And as a business owner, what I know now is that if they had bought all of us food, it's a business expense.
Which means what?
It comes off on your taxes. So it actually benefits you to spend more money feeding more people while doing something under the business. So yeah, that was like something that I was like, damn, it happened more than one time.
Absolutely.
Like, more than one time where I was like,
interesting.
I'm hungry. My stomach is making noises, and we have been here all day. Yeah. When would I have gotten time to like? There's not like, oh, now we're breaking. Yeah. So, that was one way that like working for somebody that that time I like looked up to. But that's another thing that you learn in LA. Like things are not what they seem. It's a lot of all that glitters, girl. Smoke and mirrors.
All that glitters ain't gold.
It ain't. And you learn that very quickly in LA, which is good. And hopefully, if you're not learning it, you might be experiencing it right now.
Shaky, you in the middle.
You might be experiencing it right now, and I'm praying for you. But so that was one way that working for somebody influenced how I lead now. And there's other lessons that I learned from that. But like something that we do is that make sure there's food readily available if we're shooting anything, even if it's just Morgan and I, if it's our wonderful social media person, Victoria. But we just make sure that everybody, when Joe is in town helping us with stuff for events, everybody is fed. That's one thing, everybody's fed.
Well, and I think another thing that you said and that I'm picking up on that, again, obviously no, but I think it's also how we treat the people that we're working with, right? And so for us, one way that we believe in showing respect is to actually treat people as equals upon first meeting. Like there's no reason not to generally, especially as Black women meeting other Black women. And so one thing that I hear from you is how no matter what, I'm going to show somebody I work with the at least common decency of respect of providing a snack. One, because you're here and you're working with me. But also, you kind of mentioned, and maybe you didn't, but just like getting respect for some of the work that you're doing, and like not only what you're providing, but your presence, because you're not at that photo shoot sitting like a fly on the wall, are you?
No, I'm not, baby. I'm working. I'm picking up stuff. I'm moving stuff over. We're switching. Yeah, there's a lot happening. I'm interested to know, how does your work experience and work experience you've had in the past influence how you lead today?
These are my work glasses. They've seen it all. So I would say my biggest lesson has been, and I mentioned this earlier, I'm an introvert. I have a big bad older brother who will fight my battles for me. So, I'm fine chilling, like not causing.
And I'm a first child. I'm a first-born daughter. So that also explains a lot about our personality. Because I can confront a mother.
But I'm like, maybe we should talk about it offline. Call, you go home we'll talk about it tomorrow.
Confrontation, let's get to it. I love confrontation. Not in a toxic way.
No, but that's how you solve shit.
That's how you solve
Truthfully. So, I have no problem sidestepping some stuff. And so this becomes difficult when you're in a professional setting, especially a professional setting where you do not see a lot of representation in yourself. And so because I have maintained on a mostly architectural track, mostly traditional, architectural track, I have been in these positions that plenty of people are in, but it's a little bit different when you're a woman of color. And so one way that I try to consistently give back to the people that we work with is making sure that we're giving them we're empowering people that we work with to be advocates for themselves, but to also not be afraid to ask what they're worth. One way that I feel like we often fail younger women or younger workforces is that we're not giving them these opportunities to learn how to ask for what they are worth. It's not even necessarily what you deserve sometimes, because that is a baseline. That's a baseline, but it's also what you're worth. And so learning that has been a really long lesson for, myself. I'm still on it, bro. I'm still on it. Self-development, don't stop. And don't you ever think that it does.
It never ends. It literally never ends.
Tobi like, aren't you tired of growing?
And that's something that people don't talk enough about. Like having a business and just having some sort of like mission and purpose that you're following, the shadow work that you end up having to do, the ego work that you get confronted with, that it's like, okay, yes, you're trying to tear down this monster internally, and then it will show up in another way, and you're like, I know I'm doing the self-work, but you ain't got to test me like...
Because it's like, you're like, I covered my problem, right? Like from this side and this side, and then when you have a business, bro.
Then it comes as like, what's up?
What about this side?
What about...
Did you think about me like this?
But even so, one of the ways that you've implemented like are people being able to advocate for themselves, like our reviews. Like,
right.
So you want to talk about our review processes?
So our reviews are the only reviews I'm excited about. And you can ask anybody that has ever done this review process with us. It is like this magical thing actually that we've started. And reviews are typically one of the worst times for employers during the year to have to like talk about performance in a very heads-on way, right? So people who are heads-on generally are not going to have as many problems with this, but most people, especially in a workplace, especially if you're a young person, you might feel a little intimidated going in trying to defend yourself or just speak to your own abilities. And so one way that we've tried to do that is to just make our reviews a very easy place to be. Like, you actually want to come to your review, hopefully. Because we start by asking, like, what are the big braggy things that you've done this year? Like, we want you to brag on yourself. And that is actually generally the longest part of the interview. And the thing is, I think what we love about our interviews is because we know what our girls have done. And I don't mean to say, like, our girls in a disrespectful way, but, like, we love the women that we work with. And so, like, it is... I don't want to be the one that says it. We're just we're a Black women collective, and that's what it is. And so, like, girl, like my girls.
But I will say too, like, it becomes a place of like manifestation.